Let's get more on this now with Simon Cheng in Prague. He's a British Hong Kong exiled pro-democracy activist and founder of the UK-wide diaspora group Hongkongers in Britain. Really good to have you with us on the program. This is by far the biggest trial that was conducted since Beijing's national security law was imposed in Hong Kong. What's your reaction to the guilty verdicts that we've seen?
I think not only me, but also many others people, they feel angry and sad for what happened in Hong Kong because this bunch of our pro-democracy leaders staying in Hong Kong represents the most broadest spectrum of all pro-democracy movement. It also shows the major support of our people across different aspirations, different age, different professions. And it's also very common sense to any country claim their democracy that has opposition politicians. They run for primary. They adhere to the basic law, to the law, to run for election, to maximize their chance to get winning the election, get a seat within the legislature. And also there's unconditional right for the legislator, for the opposition politicians to veto the government proposals, and even to hold the government and the political leaders to account. If they're not being welcomed by the people, they should step down, and that is a common sense of democracy. But what we have witnessed in Hong Kong, they're just illogical. That's because they twist the basic law, then they trampled our basic rights, have been enshrined by the constitution for all Chinese and Hong Kong people.
These convictions show how authorities are using the sweeping powers of that national security law to quash dissent. Do you think ultimately, as the years go on, dissent in fact will disappear if they're going to be found guilty of overthrowing the government, for example?
I think this case would be very symbolic as well because that is the almost final attempt of Hong Kong citizens. They try best to fulfill the quest of democracy and freedom in the legal way because the opposition of legislators is their duty and have been enshrined, being protected by the basic law. But we have seen most of them have been sentenced, most of them have been verdicted, have been confirmed that they are guilty in the guise of the national security. So in the future, I think more opposition activities would go into the underground, and many more Hong Kong citizens would try to leave and to continue the pro-democracy movement in exile overseas. Next up, we will request and we will urge all members of the international community to hold the authoritarian regimes in China and in Hong Kong to account, to respect the UN Charter with basic human rights.
Yes, because we have seen a backlash coming from many international observers, including the European Union. What more would you like the international community to do when it comes to China's growing influence in Hong Kong?
First of all, I think that the international community, especially the democratic countries, that we need to hold hands in hands. That's to request China to respect the basic human rights that have been enshrined within the UN Charter. And secondly, I think that we need to be more aware of the assertiveness of the Chinese regime because they're going to be more and more assertive. The one country, two system in Hong Kong is a litmus test to to questions whether China could constrain their power and in the future to be a country, civilized country to respect human rights more. But now we have seen the trends going to the opposite way. So we worry about the safety, the democracy of our Taiwanese people, and even more, the neighborhood countries. So we need to be aware, need to be alert, and not let Chinese regime going to be more and more aggressive to overseas and threaten our usual daily life, enjoying within our democracy. And I'm now in exile, being placed with the bounty on my head, and I've been wanted by the Hong Kong police. We still worry about the transnational repressions. We still worry about the massive civilians happening in democratic countries from Chinese, suspected Chinese secret police. That is an ongoing issue. So we are seeing if we try not to stop what's happening in Hong Kong, then the threat would go to our doorstep in the UK, in the US, in many other Western countries and international community.
Okay, Simon Cheng, we will have to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us here on TRT World.